Luis Torres. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and why you decided to go into working in group homes.
I was working in advertising a long, long time ago, and the commute into Manhattan and going to school was a little difficult, and I wanted to focus on my studies, which was communications. And I was trying to figure out how I can stay in the Bronx and get some good grades for, my line of studies, communications. So I saw in school something posted about working in the field of disabilities. I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't know what it was. But eventually what I did was I applied for the position, and the position at the time was for Catholic Guardian Society as a counselor in one of their group homes. I had no idea what it was. Applied for the position, went through training, and essentially that's how I got into it. And I didn't think I was going to stay there as long as I stayed. I maybe thought a couple of years, but as it turned out to be 30-something years. Mm-hmm. So it was. I enjoyed it in the sense that it was a learning experience. I actually, as much as I taught them the things that were required of me to teach these guys, I actually learned from them. I learned patience, I learned compassion, I learned caring. I learned about, treating people with dignity and respect and allowing them to do what they wanted to do.
Okay, we're gonna have footage. Recently, actually a long time ago, you were on Special Issues. You told us a story about how you really started with a consumer on a cruise ship.
Oh,
can you go through that story?
Well, at the time, that was many years ago, at the time, the mother of this individual that you're talking about, she wanted to treat her son to a cruise, and she needed staff to go along with him. And I had never done that before, and I wasn't sure that I could do it because this was my first experience. Actually, it was within the first 2 years of my starting. And he had certain needs, and I was concerned about those needs because he had just come out of Willowbrook. And he had certain
Explain what Willowbrook is.
Willowbrook was the state institution out of Staten Island where a lot of individuals that are now in the community were institutionalized, for behaviors or in general. That was the mindset back in the 70s. And so this one individual from Willowbrook was in our residence, and he had certain behaviors that were challenging. And so when she wanted to go on a cruise ship, I wasn't sure that I could do it. But she assured me that she would be by my side, she would provide assistance in whatever way she could. And she said, listen, you know what? It's a learning experience for all of us, including for him. Why don't we give it a try? And she was, really gung-ho about it. The mother, yes, she was really gung-ho about it. And she, the fact that she was there to support whatever was going to go on, I was willing to give it a try. And as it was, there were certain things that came out of that trip that was learning experience for me, for him, and for the mother, and it was really enjoyable.
I know cruise ships, you eat 24 hours.
You eat, but that was
explain. Now, some of the I understand. I'm interjecting here. I understand your agency, Terry O'Neill's executive director. He is working on trying to open up Freda Willy group homes. Mm-hmm. Which are eating disorders. Yes. Explain that situation with cruise ship and the consumer and the whole. When he saw food.
Well, okay. So the thing
typical day on the cruise ship.
When you're on a cruise, the whole thing about cruise, besides entertainment and just relaxing, it's very food oriented. And this individual that just came out of Willowbrook, he had to fight for little scrapes of food, or little scraps of food, I should say. I'm sorry. And so
at Willowbrook,
I don't think he got 3 square meals, and if he did, he was lucky. And so now he goes from that kind of a setting. Although he was at the group home for a while, he frequently would grab other people's food because he had to understand that he didn't have to, at this point now in his life, he didn't have to fight for food. So when he was at the cruise ship, and there were all these people sitting around, and there was access to food, before he got to his plate, he would grab my food and somebody else's food because that's what he understood. But then over the course of, it was a 7-day cruise, over the course of that cruise ship, and he saw that he had access to food, something happened where it clicked in his mind that I didn't have to fight for food anymore. The food is there. And so that carried over to his coming back to the group
For
home.
behavior.
And it reduced the behaviors. He eventually understood that this is my plate of food. I didn't have to fight for that. I didn't have to take for that. I didn't have to take that food, and I'm okay. And so that was part of his education, that this is something that I'm comfortable with. I'm okay with the food that I have, and this is a different setting. And he would look around and he would look at his food and he would see everybody and their plate of food, and he understood that if he needed more, if he wanted more, he was going to get more food. So it really changed his mindset, especially on the cruise. When he got back to the home, yeah, I didn't see him taking anybody's food anymore.
I understand, going way back years ago, you ended up in a gang setting. You didn't like what you went through. Can you explain how your life has changed since then?
Well, when I was younger, I was rebellious, and I got into some difficult situations. Part of that was growing pains and being accepted in the community. And at that time, there were gangs all over the place. And to safeguard my family and myself, I got into that kind of environment, and it was mostly growth and learning. And I was rebellious, and so part of that was me knowing who Luis was, learning about myself. And I got out of it. I'm lucky, because a lot of people didn't get out of gangs at that time. A lot of people suffered, got into drugs, got shot, got killed, or something along those lines. And I was lucky that I was able to go to school, finish up. And then now, coming into the field of disability, it taught me patience, compassion, how to care, how to be there for people, how to guide people, how to mentor people, how to work with staff, and to be a different person. Just everything that I went through in life actually helped me to get to this point where I can step back and be very patient.
Who in your life influenced you?
My father. My father had an interesting life when he was young, and he actually taught himself a lot. For me, my father was my hero. He migrated from from Puerto Rico to Florida, taught himself English, taught himself mechanics, taught himself how to survive. And eventually met my mom, came to New York in the Bronx, and eventually when I bought a car, if I wanted to change the oil of the car, I would think about going to the oil change store. He would say, no, you're going to learn how to change your own oil. So he taught me really how to not just to be handy, but to look within myself and to realize that there's so much that I could do if I give myself the opportunity. And he had a limited education, but he always said, you know what, if you really try, you can do it. He was taught a lot, he learned a lot, and ultimately over the years, he taught me how to do a lot of handy things, from cars, household stuff, and just to look within myself and to realize that there are things that I could do for myself.
You teach people to work in group homes. Can you explain a lot about what you're doing with the Educational Opportunity Center?
I teach at the SUNY EOC,
And CUNY.
which is also part of Bronx Community College. They have a direct support professional training program, which has been going on for 10 years.
Is this something you created?
Yes, this is something that eventually I approached that program, the EOC, about many years ago, about 10 years ago, just because there was a need, and the need is still there for us in the field of disabilities to have well-trained, dedicated people. So when I had approached them, I said, I think that this would be a value for value relationship, and it's a win-win for all of us if we have well-trained staff going on in the industry. And they gave me the opportunity to give it a try, and I enjoyed it, because over the course of the program, or the years of having that program at the Bronx Community College, we've had somebody become a director of a UCP program. We've had recently somebody that got through a nursing program that started out as a direct care worker, medical coordinator, and now is a nurse. We've had people become managers, supervisors. So we have people that eventually had a good first start, that good first impression, that are now out there still in the employment field of disabilities, helping to make a difference in somebody's life.
Now, we both understand that the special needs field, you don't make a lot of money. Okay, you don't. Why did you really stay in the field of special needs?
I stayed because I got hooked. When I saw that I could make a difference in somebody's life, and eventually there's so much more for me to learn, and the fact that I had a flexible schedule that I could go to school, And as I was educating myself about the field of disabilities, I realized that there were so many things that you could do. You could help staff to grow and develop. You can help the individuals become more independent. You can help family members to become more patient and to give their sons and daughters or brothers and sisters the opportunity to learn and grow, and not to just care for them. And so, because I actually learned a lot, I wanted to stay and continue, because I teach it, and it made a difference for me.
I understand that you yourself had an accident. What happened?
Yeah, I was. It was during the holidays. It was about the Christmas holiday season, and one of my coworkers had gotten a little ill, and so they asked me to take her home. She lived in Co-op City in the Bronx at the time, and as I was driving across Pelham Parkway, there were some teenagers driving alongside of me, and they were being a little reckless. And eventually, as we were crossing, I believe it was East Chester Road, they hit my car, and my car went into a tailspin and did a 360, and it went into a tree, and we were both injured in that she hit the windshield, I hit the steering wheel. I damaged my face in that I broke certain parts of my face, facial bones, and got a blowout.
Were you out for a couple of months?
I was in the hospital for a couple of days, and I was out of work for at least over a month and a half, 2 months. So I had an orbital blowout, and
what?
They call it an orbital blowout from the facial area of the eyes. And what happened is that it taught me how to be very sensitive to people who are blind, because one of the things they had to do in the ER is they had to cover my face, and I couldn't see it, and that created a lot of anxiety, because we take for granted a lot of things. And when you can see and it's there, and it's readily available, your sight, your vision, all your senses, we have a normal life. But then all of a sudden something is taken from you, and it's hard to make that adjustment. But what it taught me was, we had an individual at the group home who was legally blind. It taught me how to be more sensitive to his needs, because when I couldn't see, I was agitated, I was frustrated, and I needed assistance, and I didn't know how to accept that assistance, because I was so used to being independent. And this individual is going through his own issues, but then what I learned is to explain things to him more, to be there for him, to guide him through the house, wherever he was, if it was a new place, just to communicate with him a little bit more effectively because of what happened to me.
Explain some of the good times and the bad times that we've had to kind of end this.
Okay, I think that...
And why this is important.
Why this is important? I think that we're all here to kind of like help each other. I think some people miss that point. What's the use of getting your education or having a good job or just getting to a certain point in life if you can't share with that? And so what I feel sometimes is that, and I don't want to be corny or spiritual, but I think in some ways it is spiritual, in that we're here to lend a hand to another person. And so during the time that I've met you, one of the things that I learned is that, I got a lot.
That I can't iron my clothes.
Yeah, that you can't iron your clothes, but you still eventually, you at least your clothes are ironed right now. The one thing that I appreciate about life is that, I learned a lot from the people around me. I surrounded myself by good people that were caring and that wanted me to get ahead. And then I just felt compelled to do the same, like when I met you, that, I could see that you needed assistance with different things like your ADLs, or just to learn about life and just to understand how to be out there independent in the community. And since I got so much from life, I felt that it was only natural just to pass along some of the things that I learned to you. There were some challenges, along the way.
Can you tell us one?
Some of the challenges were that you could be resistive in the learning curve, but that still, at the end of the day, that you were still willing to learn, and that you were receptive to some of the things that we had gone through, going out, learning about banking, learning how to go on vacation, the things that were required, and just to be a man, to be independent. And so
I made a lot of mistakes.
You made mistakes, but you learned because you corrected yourself. You were willing to learn, and that's the most important thing, to keep an open mind in life and to look around and see what other people are doing. So you've come a long way yourself. All right, thank you, Larry.
Thank you for being on this edition of Abled and On Air.